The Nevada sun bore down without mercy, its heat rising in shimmering waves off the desert floor. The air hung still heavy, waiting as silence fell over the ridge. A crowd of seasoned shooters, mostly ex-military, stood watching one woman. She lay prone in the sand, her fingers calm, her breath slow, her eye fixed behind the scope of a custom-built Chaytak M300 intervention. The range target? A steel plate set 3,000 meters away. Evelyn Marks didn't look like the legend people whispered about. No tattoos, no loud stories, no need to brag. Just a tight ponytail, warm gloves, and the steady aura of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Still, many in the crowd had never seen her shoot in person. She rarely competed, and when she did, she never stayed for awards. Some thought she was a ghost. Others said she was myth. But today, she was very real. A gruff voice behind the line muttered, "Ain't no way she tags that plate at 3K. Not with that wind." A Navy SEAL leaned forward, arms crossed, shades, hiding sharp eyes. Jake Rayner wasn't there to compete. He was there out of curiosity. Word had reached him through a friend at Langley about a mysterious woman who shot better than most Tier 1 snipers. That alone was worth a drive across 2 states. Evelyn adjusted her windage. She didn't flinch. She didn't respond to the whispers. She just breathed in, counted, then crack. A second passed. 2, 3. The sound of the impact echoed faintly across the plain. The steel target spun on its mount. Center hit. The crowd gasped. No one clapped. They just stared. Evelyn sat up calmly, brushing sand from her forearms. She removed her ear protection, turned, and without smiling, locked eyes with Jake. There was no bravado in her expression. No pride, just calm confidence. "Want a shot?" she asked. Jake smirked. He hadn't heard those words said to him in years, not with challenge, not from someone like her. He stepped forward, crouched beside the rifle, and adjusted the shoulder. "Stock, same settings?" he asked. "No," she replied. "You're taller, and the wind's lying to you right now." Jake arched a brow. "Lying?" She nodded slightly. "She shifts last minute. You can't trust her. You feel her." The crowd watched, some grinning, expecting the SEAL to nail it. Others folded their arms, waiting to see him miss. Evelyn remained motionless beside him, quietly observing. Jake steadied the rifle, slowed his breathing, and fired. The bullet roared away. Everyone held their breath. Clink, off the left side of the plate. A miss. He exhaled slowly. "Damn, okay." Evelyn leaned down, adjusted the bipod an inch, and recentered the rifle with surgical precision. "You were 10 centimeters off," she said softly. The wind curled at 1,500. Jake raised an eyebrow. "You felt that?" She looked at him. "You will. In time." The moment passed quietly. Jake stood, brushing dust from his knees. The others began talking again, but he barely heard them. His eyes stayed on her. "You ex-military?" he asked. She looked past him, as if considering the horizon. "Not anymore." "You don't talk much," he said. "I talk to people who listen." Jake smiled faintly. "You talk like a sniper." She didn't answer. Later, as the competition wrapped up, Jake walked over to the equipment bench, where Evelyn was packing her rifle into a custom carbon fiber case. "That was one hell of a shot. I've had better," she said. Jake chuckled. "You always this friendly?" "I don't teach people who joke about war." His smile faded. "I don't joke about it. I've lived it." She paused, her hand stilling on the rifle case. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached into a side pocket and pulled out an old, sun-faded patch. She handed it to him. Jake looked down and saw the words embroidered in fraying black thread, ECH06. His eyes narrowed. This was a JSOC unit. Evelyn nodded once. That unit went dark. I heard rumors it was wiped in Syria. They were, she said. All of them. You were part of it? He asked, stunned. I was the spotter, she said. That day. I was also the shooter. Jake went quiet. You just disappeared? He finally asked. Evelyn closed the case. I didn't disappear. I stepped back. There's a difference. He looked at her, his curiosity turning into respect. You left a lot of questions behind. And I answered them, she said. With distance. Jake nodded slowly. You ever think about coming back? Teaching again? She looked him over calm, calculating. Why? Because no one else shoots like you, he said. And because we've got too many broken. Guys who need something real. She studied him for a long moment. Then, with a subtle nod, she said, Meet me at dawn. We'll see what kind of shot you really are. And just like that, Evelyn Marks, the ghost of Echo 6, stepped back into a world she had sworn to leave. Behind not for war, but for something far more difficult. Redemption. Dawn broke with a bruised sky, streaks of lavender and charcoal rolling over the Nevada hills. Jake arrived early, gear slung over his shoulder, boots crunching gravel as he walked toward the ridge. He didn't expect Evelyn to be there yet. Snipers valued precision, not punctuality. But as he approached the high ground, he spotted her silhouette already prone against the sand, unmoving, blending into the earth like a shadow long forgotten. The rifle beside her wasn't the one from yesterday. This one was sleeker, more customized. Matte black with hand-carved notches along the grip. Jake counted them. 12. Those for kills? He asked. Evelyn didn't look up. No, he said nothing more. She motioned toward a second rifle-identical build, different scope. Yours, she said. You're not touching mine. Jake chuckled softly and dropped beside it. Fair. He went through his familiar rituals positioning, checking. The bolt, adjusting the cheek rest, but Evelyn was already a step ahead. Your body's off angle. Shift 10 degrees left. You're fighting your own balance. He paused. You barely glanced. I've seen 1,000 shooters, she replied. The ones who hit always look aligned with purpose. He followed her direction. It felt better, more fluid. Evelyn handed him a spotter scope. Don't shoot, watch. Jake obeyed. Eyes behind the lens, tracing a series of steel targets set between 800 and 2,500 meters. You set this up last night? I don't sleep much, she replied. She took her position, adjusted her wind dial, and fired. Crack, crack, crack. Each shot hit its mark, the steel ringing faintly in the distance. Jake tracked the impacts with wide eyes. Her aim wasn't just accurate, it was prophetic. She moved faster than the wind, adjusting between shots like she had a direct line to the air itself. You're not guessing, are you? He said. Evelyn smirked, the closest she came to smiling. Guessing is for gamblers. I read the air. Jake nodded slowly. What else do you read? People. Patterns. Tension. You carry yours in. Your right shoulder, she said without looking. I'm guessing an old blast injury. You overcompensate. Throws your shots wide. Jake's brow lifted. Okay, now you're freaking me out. She finally turned her head. That's because you're used to instructors who teach you to shoot. I'm teaching you to feel it. Jake looked at her again. There was something serene in the way she moved, as though sniping was meditation, not violence. There were no nerves in her breathing, no flinch in her body. Only peace. Where'd you learn to shoot like this? He asked. Evelyn hesitated. Alaska. My father was a trapper. My brother and I grew up in snow so thick, it swallowed sound. You learn wind like a second language. You had a brother? Jake asked gently. She nodded once. Lucas joined the army, killed in Sangin. I followed. Jake's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I'm not, she said. He taught me to shoot before he left. Taught me the value of silence. After he died, I stopped missing. Jake looked out across the ridge, suddenly feeling small. So Echo 6, was that about vengeance? No, she replied. It was about control. About making sure someone else's brother got home. The silence between them stretched long, but never felt uncomfortable. Jake adjusted his position again, trying the 1,500-meter shot. His first attempt veered right. His second missed high. Close, Evelyn said. You're thinking too much. Shooting is instinct. You've got training. Let it go. Jake breathed deep, closed his eyes, felt the wind on his cheek. Crack, clang, direct hit. He exhaled slowly. Finally. You're not as good as you think, she said calmly. But you're better than most. He smiled. That a compliment? It's truth. Over the next hour, she pushed him hard, relentlessly analyzing. Every movement, every breath, every twitch. She was merciless, but not cruel. She was sculpting precision out of chaos, molding technique with quiet purpose. Jake could feel his instincts sharpening. But between instructions, his curiosity grew. Why did you stop? After Syria? Evelyn's voice quieted. My last shot saved no one. Gave away our position. 12 died. Only I survived. Jake looked at her, startled. You think it was your fault? I know it was. I ignored my gut. I listened to the wind, but not my instincts. I shot anyway. Jake shook his head. You can't carry that forever. I already have, she said. Every day since. He wanted to say something comforting, but Evelyn didn't want comfort. She wanted understanding. Jake realized he wasn't just here to learn how to shoot. He was here to see what she'd become after everything went wrong. I get it, he said finally. I lost my spotter in Ramadi. I was too slow. Too sure. She turned to him. And you came back anyway. I didn't want to. But then, I met a woman who drilled a shot through a 3,000-meter target like she was flipping a coin. She gave a rare smile. You're stubborn. Only with the best, Jake replied. They sat in quiet harmony, two ghosts of wars they never wanted. To fight, bonded by shared grief and steel. As the sun rose higher, Evelyn stood. Training continues tomorrow. Same time. Jake nodded. You always train this hard? She looked down the range. Only with people worth training. And then she walked away. Jake remained, staring. Through the scope, replaying every word, every shot, every correction. He realized something profound. Evelyn Marks wasn't just a sniper. She was a survivor. A guide. And maybe, just maybe, the sharpest weapon the world never knew existed. Jake Rayner had met plenty of dangerous people in his life: war criminals, cartel enforcers, covert ops commanders, but none of them haunted him quite like Evelyn Marks. There was something about her precision, her cold fire, her silence. It stuck with him, buried itself in the corners of his mind, and refused to leave. He needed answers. That night, in a dimly lit motel room just outside Reno, Jake opened a secure laptop and fired off a message to a contact at Fort Bragg. The reply came faster than expected, just one file, heavily redacted. Jake scanned the screen and frowned. Operation file, ECH06 status. Terminated survivors. 1. Marks. Evelyn SGT. Mission outcome. Classified. Everything else was black ink and silence. Names, dates, GPS, logs gone. Scrub it like they never existed. Jake leaned back in the creaky motel chair, fingers laced behind his head. What the hell did you go through? The next morning, he returned to the ridge. Evelyn was already there, lying prone, eye behind scope. She acknowledged him with a simple nod. You always beat the sun? Jake asked. Sun never stopped. A bullet, she replied. Today's range was different. Urban mock-ups, old cars, rusted metal doors, broken windows. The targets weren't steel plates anymore. They were human silhouettes. Changing the game? Jake asked. Evelyn stood beside a plywood cutout. You train in nature. You get soft in concrete. War happens in cities. He moved into firing position. Evelyn called out variables like a surgeon. Wind southeast at 3 knots. Target 1 lower abdomen. Civilian hostage behind. Jake adjusted and fired. Crack. The dummy flipped backward. Clean shot. Nice, she said. Now do it blindfolded. He blinked. What? She tossed him a dark cloth. You want to trust yourself? Stop relying on your eyes. Trust your breath, your math, your ears. Jake hesitated but tied the cloth around his face anyway. She guided him, voice low and even. Tilt 2 degrees left. Winds picked up. Count to 5. Exhale on 3. Squeeze on 4. He did as told. Crack. Silence. And the faint clang of impact. He pulled the blindfold off to see the silhouette swaying hit perfectly through the center. Jake turned to her. You're insane. Evelyn's expression didn't change. You're welcome. They took a short break. Jake sat on a rusted tailgate, sipping water, watching her quietly inspect every weapon in her case. Her hands moved with ritual precision, not a wasted gesture. I dug into your file last night, he said. Evelyn's movements paused for half a second. You won't find much. I found enough. You were the only one who made it out. She didn't look up. I didn't make it out. I just didn't die. Jake let the silence hang before responding. You don't talk about Echo 6? No, she said. Because they're not stories. They're ghosts. You blame yourself. I heard the shot. I called the shot. And then the sky fell. Jake studied her. What really happened? Over there? She finally looked up. We were supposed to extract a deep asset. Intel said it was clean. It wasn't. Half the city was a trap. We got surrounded. And the airstrike? We called it in. I gave the coordinates, but there was a delay. Wrong timing. Wrong blast radius. Her eyes flickered with memory. I watched my commander burn. My brother's best friend bled out in my lap. I survived because I fell into a collapsed stairwell. When the wall exploded, Jake swallowed hard. That's not your fault. She didn't respond. Why didn't you come back? I tried, but everything felt wrong. The air was too loud. People smiled too much. I couldn't hold a fork. Without feeling the rifle grip. Jake nodded slowly. So you disappeared into the desert. It was the only place quiet enough to think. The vulnerability in her voice was brief, like a ripple in still water. But Jake recognized it. He'd felt it too after missions where nothing made sense anymore. They resumed training. This time, Evelyn walked him through multi-angle shots. Adjusting for elevation, time lag, even emotional stress. Heart rate affects your shot, she said. You carry tension in your right shoulder. It's throwing off your pattern. Jake blinked. You notice all that? I notice everything, she said. I had to. They trained until the sun dipped low, casting orange shadows across the hills. As they packed up, Jake stopped. Her. Why are you training me? He asked. Really? She looked at him, eyes harder now. Because you're the first person who didn't ask me if I was lucky. You asked me how I felt the wind. Jake nodded. And because, she continued, You're not trying to shoot to prove something. You're trying to shoot to understand. To understand what? Your ghosts, same as mine. That night, back in town, Jake sat with her outside a diner under a flickering neon sign. He bought her a coffee. She didn't touch it. Ever. Think of going back to teaching? He asked. I'm not a teacher, she said. You are, whether you like it or not. She looked down at her hands. I taught once. A new guy. Fresh, eager. He wanted to be just like his father. What happened to him? He died in Fallujah, she said flatly. His first tour. His last. Jake exhaled slowly. You've been through hell. We all have, she said. Mine just echoes louder. A moment sat between them like a loaded rifle. Jake reached into his jacket and handed her something. It was her old Patch Echo 6. I had it cleaned up, he said. Some ghosts shouldn't be forgotten. Evelyn stared at it for a long time. Then she slid it into her vest pocket without a word. Tomorrow, they'd train again. But tonight, in the quiet Nevada dusk, Evelyn Marks allowed herself one fragile thought. Maybe she wasn't a ghost anymore. Maybe, just maybe, she was human again. Evelyn led Jake down a dirt road at dawn, away from the usual ridge, deep into a forgotten canyon no one else trained in. There were no wind flags, no target silhouettes, no cameras or spotters, just a worn-out folding chair, a heavy rucksack, and a long, narrow stretch of land that curved around the base of the canyon like a natural shooting gallery. Jake followed her silently. He knew today was different. It wasn't about distance, accuracy, or timing. It was about ghosts. Evelyn knelt at the edge of a shallow hill. From the rucksack, she pulled out 12 glass bottles, each wrapped in worn flannel cloth. She placed them one by one on rock ledges at various distances, some near, some far, each balanced precisely on the edge, like they were meant to shatter under judgment. Jake watched her work in silence. The way she handled each bottle, careful, respectful, like placing flowers at a grave, told him everything he needed to know. Who are they for? He asked quietly. Evelyn didn't look at him. Teammates, brothers, people I couldn't bring home. She finished setting the last one, then sat cross-legged on the earth, her rifle beside her. 12 of us went into that building in Raqqa. Only I came out. The mission failed, but the world never heard about it. They buried it with medals. And lies. Jake sat beside her. You've carried that weight alone? I didn't want anyone else to carry it, she said. So I turned every ghost into a lesson. Every bottle out there has a story. She pointed at the first bottle. That one's for Brooks. He was always chewing gum during missions. Said it helped him keep calm. Got shot trying to protect a medic. Never stopped chewing. Jake followed her finger to the next. Juno? She nodded. Our communications guy. He never shut up, always playing jazz through his comms, even during briefings. Died trying to get a satellite ping through enemy jammers. She lifted her rifle and sighted downrange. Today, we honor them. Crack. A first bottle shattered. Clean. Crack. A second burst like a firework in sunlight. Jake sat in reverent silence, listening to her speak each name like a prayer between shots. Each pull of the trigger released a memory. Some soft, others violent. Some proud, others filled with quiet guilt. She handed him the rifle. You try. Jake hesitated. I didn't know them. You know pain, she said. And that's enough. He took the rifle and aimed at the third bottle. The breath caught in his throat. Crack. Glass scattered. He swallowed. That one's for Ramos, my spotter. Took a round for me in Fallujah. Never got to meet his son. Evelyn nodded. That's how we let them live. Together, they went down the line, alternating shots, names, stories. By the 8th bottle, Jake's hands trembled. Evelyn reached over and steadied his grip without a word. "This is how I survived," she whispered. "This canyon, these bottles, this process." Jake lowered the rifle. "You come here often?" "Every year. Same day, same time." He glanced at the date on his watch. "This was the day it happened?" She nodded once. "And today's the first time I brought someone with me." Jake looked at the last bottle on the ridge. "Who's that one for?" Evelyn's voice caught. She looked away. "Lucas." Jake froze. "Your brother?" She nodded. "He wasn't Echo 6, but he was the reason I ever picked up a rifle." She lay down, lined up her shot, but didn't pull the trigger. "I couldn't save him," she said. "He died before I ever got the chance." Jake watched her carefully. "You've saved more than you know." Evelyn turned to him, tears threatening to break her steely gaze. "I never wanted to be a hero. I just didn't want anyone else to bury their brother." After a long pause, she steadied herself and fired. Crack. The final bottle shattered, and with it, something inside her shifted. They packed up the pieces in silence. Evelyn didn't speak for a long time. As the sun rose higher, casting gold across the canyon walls, she finally said, "You've earned the truth." "All of it?" Jake turned to her. "I didn't just survive. Echo 6, she said. "I disobeyed orders to try and save them. I stayed behind. I held a sniper perch until I had no rounds left, trying to cover their retreat. But command pulled out early. Said it was too risky." She looked at her hands. "They made me sign an NDA, said I could never speak of it again." Jake's jaw tightened. "That's why it was all redacted." She nodded. "They said if I ever talked, I'd go to prison. I left the service, went off-grid, and every year I come back here. To remember." Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll make sure they're remembered for more than silence." Evelyn exhaled. "I've taught you everything I can about shooting. But the rest ... you have to find in your own way." Jake nodded. "Then let me ask you this. Are you done hiding?" She looked up at the sky. "I'm done surviving." Jake smiled. "Then maybe it's time to start living." Evelyn stood, her silhouette sharp against the blazing sun. The canyon behind her, the future ahead. She'd carried the weight for too long. Now, finally, she was ready to let go. 3 weeks later, Jake's phone buzzed in the middle of the night. A secure line. Only a few people knew the number, and fewer dared use it. He answered instantly. "Raynor," the voice on the other end said. "We need you." Jake sat up. In bed, mind sharpening like a blade. "What's the mission?" "Hostage rescue. Eastern Europe. Intel says American citizens. Failed diplomatic channels. We need long-range cover. You're the best we've got if you're in." Jake hesitated only a moment before replying, "Only if Evelyn Marks comes too." The line went quiet. "She's a civilian," the voice said. "Not even on the books anymore." Jake's voice turned cold. "You want those people back alive. You bring her in." Click. No confirmation, no argument. But 3 hours later, 2 unmarked SUVs pulled up outside Evelyn's cabin. She was already outside, packed and ready. "I figured they'd call," she said as Jake stepped out. "They always do when things go sideways." Jake looked at her. "You sure about this?" "I'm not doing it for them," she said. "I'm doing it for the hostages." They flew out under the radar, no formal orders, no press briefings. This wasn't a mission sanctioned for headlines. It was surgical, buried, and dangerous. A black operation in every sense. Their landing zone was a snowy forest outside the Ukrainian border. Evelyn's breath fogged in the freezing air as she inspected her rifle under the dim glow of the moon. "This isn't Nevada," Jake muttered through his scarf. Evelyn didn't respond. She was locked in silent, calculating, like slipping back into a second skin she never truly shed. The team assembled a mix of SEALs, Delta Force, and CIA handlers, but all eyes kept sliding back to Evelyn, a woman, civilian unknown, who walked like she owned the ground beneath her. One agent leaned toward Jake. "You sure she's stable?" Jake didn't even look at him. "She's more stable than this whole damn operation." The objective, a fortified compound guarded by mercenaries. Intel said the hostages were being moved in 12 hours. They had one window, one shot. Evelyn studied the terrain map. "I want high ground here." She pointed to a snow-covered ridge 2 miles out. "Elevation's clean, no blind spots. Wind's variable, but I'll manage." A tech glanced up. "That's over 3,200 meters." Jake nodded. "That's why she's here." Night fell, hard and fast. Evelyn lay prone beneath a white ghillie cloak, snow collecting on her back. Her rifle nestled against her shoulder, eye pressed to the scope. Jake's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Team moving in." She whispered back, "Copy." Then silence. The wind howled, steady but unpredictable. Evelyn slowed her breathing, lips barely parting as she mouthed a countdown in her head. 2 guards, one on the tower, one near the gate. She adjusted. Crack, crack. Both fell without a sound. Jake's voice, entry clear. She watched them breach, her scope sweeping, predicting angles, reading the rhythm of movement like sheet music. A truck roared to life near the back of the compound, moving the hostages. Jake warned. Evelyn shifted targets, heart rate, slowing instead of rising. One shot, crack. Driver slumped. Another round, crack. Engine block disabled. The truck crashed into a tree. Inside the compound, bullets erupted. Chaos, screams. Jake's voice strained. "We're pinned, East Corridor." Evelyn's breath fogged inside her hood. She searched through the scope there. 3 hostiles flanking. Too close for comfort. She moved fast. Wind was curling now left to right. Margin for error. 6 inches. Crack, crack, all down. Silence returned. Jake's voice came through again. "You just saved all of us." Evelyn didn't smile. Still not done. 2 more hostiles burst from a side exit with a hostage in tow. The distance? 3,215 meters. No American sniper had ever confirmed a kill at that range. But Evelyn wasn't thinking about records. She was thinking about Juno, about Brooks, about her brother. She exhaled. Crack. The man dropped. The hostage fell to their knees, untouched. Jake's voice in her ear was barely a whisper. "Jesus." But Evelyn didn't reply. Her hands were steady. Her heart beat like a drum buried in snow. Minutes later, the hostages were secured. All safe, no casualties. By dawn, the compound was silent its evil, stripped clean by steel and stillness. Back at the forward operating base, Evelyn sat alone, cleaning her rifle with the same reverence she used on her glass bottles. She didn't speak. She didn't look up when Jake approached. "You are perfect," he said. She shook her head. "I was necessary." Jake sat beside her. "That shot 3,200 meters. That's history." "I wasn't aiming for history," she said. "I was aiming for peace." He looked at her for a long moment. "Are you coming home?" Evelyn paused. "No, this was my last shot." Jake frowned. "You sure?" "I was broken once," she said. "Then I became a weapon. But I'm done being either. The war ended for me today." He reached into his pack and handed her a folded cloth. Inside was a new patch, Echo Project stitched in gray thread. "For you," he said, "to start something better." Evelyn closed her fingers around it, No salute, no medal, no glory, just purpose. Evelyn didn't go back to Nevada. Not immediately. After the mission, she disappeared again. No goodbyes, no forwarding address, just a short message left for Jake. Thank you, but I'm not ready yet. Jake understood. Some people needed time. Others needed distance. Evelyn needed both. Back at the base, the other operators didn't stop talking about her. That shot, insane, someone said. You know how much drift you get at 3,200 meters? Said another. But Jake didn't join the chatter. He wasn't thinking about velocity or angles. He was thinking about Evelyn's eyes, how they didn't celebrate that kill. They mourned. A month passed. Then, too, Jake resumed training other SEALs, but something was missing. His aim was sharper than ever. Evelyn had changed the way he fired. But beyond the rifle, she'd changed something deeper. She'd shown him how to live with ghosts, not run from them. Then, one morning, a small envelope arrived on his desk. Inside, a photo. It showed a glass bottle shattered on a rocky ledge. Snow in the background. On the back, in Evelyn's handwriting, last one, for me. Jake smiled. Evelyn was healing. 2 months later, she returned to Nevada. The cabin was still there, untouched. Dust had gathered, but the silence welcomed her like an old friend. She unpacked slowly, her rifle, her patch, her gear. But this time, she also carried something new, a notebook. The first page was blank. The second read, Echo Project. Phase 1. She didn't call Jake right away. Instead, she started building. She cleared out an abandoned ranger station miles from her cabin. She reinforced the walls, set up a shooting range, dug out a long trench for prone training, and ordered supplies under an alias. Word spread quietly through back channels. Veterans started showing up. Not the flashy kind, not the thank you for your service type. These were broken men and women. Those who'd seen too much, done too much, and couldn't find peace. They arrived with scars and silence. Evelyn didn't ask questions. She handed them rifles and said, "Let's shoot." The program wasn't official. It had no funding, no website, no logo. But it worked. She taught like she had with Jake by instinct. She showed them wind, breath, pressure. But more importantly, she showed them stillness, control. One Marine had lost 3 fingers to an IED. Evelyn built him a custom trigger rest. One Army sniper hadn't fired a weapon in 5 years. She sat with him for 6 hours in silence until his hands stopped shaking. They weren't training for combat. They were training for clarity, for the ability to breathe again. And then one day, Jake showed up. She was adjusting a wind flag when she heard the familiar crunch of boots. "You look different," Jake said, approaching. "You look tired," she replied. "I've been reading reports." "You're making waves." Evelyn gave a small shrug. "I'm just offering a place. Nothing fancy." "It's more than that," Jake said. "These people talk. You're helping them." She paused. "You helped me first." Jake looked around the range. "Is this it? The mission now?" Evelyn nodded. "This is my redemption arc." Jake grinned. "Need a co-instructor?" She handed him a scope. "Prove you can still shoot." That afternoon, they trained side by side. Jake watched her work with the vets. She never pitied them. She never coddled. She treated them as equals capable. Intelligent, worthy. Every bottle shattered wasn't just glass, it was release. Jake pulled her aside. "This needs to grow. We could build more ranges, expand, set up centers around the country." Evelyn shook her head. "One shot at a time. That's how healing works." Jake sighed. "You're still stubborn." She smiled faintly. "Takes one to know one." Later that night, under the stars, Jake handed her a journal. Inside were letters handwritten by former students of Echo Project. You gave them something they couldn't get from pills or therapy, he said. You gave them control again. Evelyn didn't speak. She flipped through the letters' stories of peace, of reconnection, of hope. Tears welled in her eyes, but none fell. I never wanted to be a leader, she whispered. You're not, Jake said. You're a compass. She looked up. You know what's funny? All this time I thought I was shooting to forget. Turns out I was shooting to remember. To remember who I used to be. Jake smiled. And who are you now? She looked out across the range, where silhouettes danced in the twilight. I'm Evelyn Marks, Echo 6, last survivor, first teacher. She stood, stretched, and walked toward the barracks, calling over her shoulder. Class starts at sunrise. Don't be late, SEAL. Jake watched her go, a deep pride swelling in his chest. Evelyn hadn't just healed. She'd become the shot. Heard around the world. Echo Project had grown beyond the ridge, beyond Evelyn's cabin, beyond even the military's quiet curiosity. It became something sacred among a specific kind of warrior, the kind that didn't come back whole, the kind that carried the battlefield home in their chest. But Evelyn didn't care for attention. She never allowed press, never allowed cameras. Her rules were simple. Show up. Be honest. Put in the work. Leave a little lighter. Then, one cold morning in February, a convoy of black SUVs rolled up the dirt road. Government plates, windows tinted darker than usual. Jake spotted them first. They're not here for therapy, he said under his breath. Evelyn stood on the porch of the training center, calm as ever, wind biting her cheeks. She didn't flinch when the lead vehicle stopped, and a man in a wool coat stepped out. Gray suit, red tie, no name badge. CIA. Jake guessed. High up. Miss Marks, the man said, walking up the steps. Or do you still go by Sergeant? I go by Evelyn, she said. He gave a thin smile. We've been monitoring Echo Project. Impressive work. Quiet. Effective. Some would say revolutionary. Evelyn stared. Say what you need to say. The man's smile dropped. There's a situation. Jake stepped forward. She's not active. She's not yours anymore. The agent ignored him. We need someone to make a shot. One that no one else can make. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. You've got hundreds of snipers. None of them can do what you do, he replied. This isn't war. It's a message. Evelyn crossed her arms. I'm not a weapon. The agent pulled a file from his coat. Then read the target profile and decide. She opened it slowly. Inside, photos, locations, timelines. A name she hadn't heard in years. Commander Farid Salani. She froze. Jake stepped beside her. Who is he? She closed the folder. He ordered the ambush in Raqqa, the one that killed Echo 6. The agent nodded. He's resurfaced. We need to tie off the loose end. Clean. Untraceable. A message to his network. Evelyn's voice turned to ice. You want revenge. The agent didn't deny it. We want peace, and sometimes peace needs silence. She handed the folder back. No, the agent blinked. Excuse me? I've made my peace with the past, she said. You should too. He stepped closer, voice colder. You walked away from the military, Evelyn. But this man didn't walk away from killing Americans. He's planning something. We have proof. You could stop him before it begins. Jake stepped in. She said no, but Evelyn didn't move. She was still staring at the spot where the folder had been in her hands. Then, slowly, she said, How long do I have? Jake's head snapped toward her. Evelyn, 48. Hours, the agent said. Target will be mobile after that. I'll call you if I decide. she said flatly. Without another word, the agent returned to the SUV. They drove off in a cloud of dust and silence. Jake turned to her. You don't have to do this. You've already won. Evelyn whispered. It's not about winning. Jake narrowed his eyes. Then what? She looked at him. It's about finishing. That night, she sat alone. At her shooting bench, the file open in front of her. Zailani had moved through war like a shadow. A puppet master behind attacks in Syria, Yemen, and Sudan. Somehow, he kept slipping away. Untouchable. Until now. Jake found her there just before. Dawn, I can't let you go alone, he said. You won't stop me, she replied. I'm not here to stop you, he said. I'm here to remind you why you walked away. She didn't speak. Jake placed something beside the file. It was a photo of the Echo Project trainees smiling. Arms around each other, scars visible and unashamed. You gave them a life, he said. What happens if you don't come back? Evelyn stared at the photo for a long time. Then she said, then make sure the next one keeps the flame burning. Within 24 hours, she was in Turkey, perched on a remote rooftop overlooking a private airfield. Zailani was expected within the hour. She lay prone, motionless, breath steady, heart rate calm. In her scope, she saw guards' patterned patrols, predictable and lazy. She adjusted for wind, humidity, mirage effect. Jake's voice crackled softly through her earpiece. Still with me? Always, she whispered. Then the car arrived. Black, armored. Zailani stepped out older, but unmistakable. Evelyn adjusted half a click. Her finger rested on the trigger, but something held her back. Memories. 12 glass bottles. One unfinished page in her journal. Jake's voice again. You don't have to become who they want. She exhaled. Then, slowly, deliberately, she took her finger off the trigger. No shot, she whispered. Jake was stunned. Say again? I said no shot. I'm not their ghost anymore. She dismantled her rifle. Piece by piece, packed it away, and vanished into the wind. The operation was left unresolved, but Zailani got the message. Intelligence reports later showed him fleeing the country and dismantling half his network in fear. Evelyn's silence had spoken louder than any bullet. She returned to Echo Project 1 week later. Jake met her at the gate. You left a lot of questions. She replied, I left one answer. He grinned. You didn't kill the past. You outlived it. She looked across the range. I finally understand. The best shot I ever took was the one I didn't fire. Then she turned to Jake, and now it's time to teach that. Months later, Echo Project had become more than a refuge. It was a movement. Veterans from every branch, every conflict, found their way to Evelyn's remote training center. They came broken, scarred, haunted, and they left with purpose. Jake stood beside Evelyn one crisp morning as the sun painted the desert gold. Around them, the newest class was assembling, faces marked by battles past, but eyes glimmering with a new fire. Evelyn addressed the group. Today's lesson isn't about bullets or scopes. It's about control. Control over your body, your mind, your pain. She demonstrated slow, deep breathing, encouraging the group to follow. The air was thick with tension and hope. One shot can save a life or take one. But the hardest shot is the one we take it ourselves. The shot to forgive, to heal, to keep going. Jake watched her carefully. This was the Evelyn he had never met, the teacher, the survivor, the leader. After class, Jake pulled her aside. You changed a lot of lives, she shrugged. They changed mine. The two walked toward the ridge where it had all begun. Jake asked, Do you ever miss the war? Evelyn smiled faintly. I miss who I was before it, but I don't miss the fight. She looked out over the valley, then back at him. I finally understand that peace isn't silence. It's choosing when to speak, when to act, when to stay still. Jake nodded. And you're teaching others to find that peace. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the patch Jake had given her, the Echo Project insignia. From now on, she said, this isn't just a project. It's a promise. A promise to carry the past without being consumed by it. A promise to fight, not with bullets, but with healing. Jake smiled. So what's next? Evelyn looked toward the horizon. We build more. We teach more. We save more. Count me in, Jake said. Together, they turned back toward the training grounds, ready to face whatever came next, because some shots echo forever, but the loudest echo is the one that saves lives.